already had that inherited resistance. But sometimes it is true, antibiotics can become, bacteria can become resistant to antibiotics, a resistance they previously didn't have. But again, it's due to a loss of information. It's due to a problem. For instance, some bacteria get a mutation so they can't transport materials across their cell wall as well as they could, and so the antibiotic can't be taken across the cell wall, so it won't kill the bacteria, but that's because it now can't do something it previously could. That's how it gained a resistance. Or it might be that it produces an enzyme that breaks down an antibiotic into poisons to destroy the DNA, but if it has a mutation that stops it producing that enzyme, like one of the bacteria that they believe, the bacterium they believe forms stomach ulcers, this can happen. If it gets a mutation and stops it producing the enzyme, then it becomes resistant because it no longer breaks down the antibiotic to form poisons. Or in another instance, it can cause an overproduction of an enzyme to enable it to become resistant, but then it's using valuable resources and actually overall is weaker. There are many, many other examples we could talk about, but they have nothing to do with an increase in information. A reduction of information, but not an increase in information. You know the reason we have mutations in the first place, mistakes occurring, it's because of the curse, because sin and the curse. And you know, when you think about it with dogs, when mutations occur, normally in the wild through processes like natural selection, most of those mutations would be lost from the population because they wouldn't survive as well. But you see, what we do artificial selection. You know, we look at dogs and say, oh, look at this dog, mean little dog here, and this mean little dog, and you breed them together, try and get a poodle or something like that. Or you say, wow, look at this dog here, it has its jaw stuffed up into its face and its nose stuffed up into its face, and eventually you breed the bulldog. And I mean, let's face it, in the wild, the bulldog wouldn't survive very well, would it? You know, if you think about it, take a poodle. You ever seen all the mistakes that are in a poodle? I mean, these are just some of the mistakes in a poodle. Why would you want a dog like that? Actually, if you think about it, the domestic dogs like the poodle, I mean, it costs you millions of dollars to keep them alive, doesn't it? You've got to take them to the vet every now and then. You've got to give them heartworm tablets every month. If they get a cold, you lay awake all night wondering if they'll be dead in the morning. If you take them outside on their own, they can't find their way back home. But, you know, the mongrel dog down the street, I mean, you know, it's a mixture of everything. I mean, you can run over those things in a truck and they get up and wave and off they go. You know, there's something dreadfully wrong with all those mutations in our domestic varieties. But see, we keep them alive. Normally they wouldn't stay alive out there in the wild. We deliberately keep them alive. And so through artificial selection, we're able to get our various domestic breeds, including poodles. By the way, what this all helps us understand here is this. When you think about it, Noah didn't need to take on the ark dingoes and wolves and coyotes and Great Dane and Little Chihuahua. He just needed 2 dogs, didn't he? That's all he needed, 2 dogs. With cats, we're not sure how many cat kinds. If I'd have been on the ark, there'd be no cat kinds. They would have been overboard, but it's because I don't like cats, I guess. But anyway, sorry about that. I know you've probably all got cats, but with cats, some people suggest there might only be 1 cat kind, but maybe 2, maybe 3 cat kinds. But see, not hundreds of cat kinds. With elephants, probably just 1 kind of elephant. You know, your mammoths, your Indian elephants, your stegodons, stegomastodons, African elephants, probably all came from just 2 elephants on Noah's Ark. That's very, very easy to understand when you understand some basic biology here. And so when you think about it, Noah didn't need near the number of animals we think on the ark. In fact, one of our researchers associated with the creation ministry, John Woodmarampe, has a book called Noah's Ark, a Feasibility Study, and in there he does a lot of research concerning kinds and the number of animals on the ark, and he comes to the conclusion probably less than 16,000 animals, fewer than 16,000 animals needed on the ark. That would have filled probably less than a third of the ark. There was plenty of room. In fact, I often say to people, there was plenty of room on the ark for people. And they were out there when Noah was preaching, come into the ark to be saved, there's plenty of room. And sadly, only 8 people were saved on that boat. You know one of the sad things I find in the Christian world? There's a man called Dr. Hugh Ross, who is a progressive creationist. He believes in billions of years, believes in Big Bang, believes in a local flood. Because he believes in millions of years, he can't believe in a global flood. You see, because I believe most of your fossils came from the flood of Noah's day, and some came after the flood. But if you believe in millions of years, you can't believe in a global flood because it would have ripped up all those fossil layers and redeposited them. So if you believe in millions of years, to be consistent, like Dr. Hugh Ross, you've got to believe in a local flood. Because he believes in a local flood, therefore, he can't have creationists like myself explaining all the species, varieties of animals over the earth from those that were on board Noah's Ark. And so he actually accuses us in his books of believing in evolution because we believe in speciation. But I want you to understand that speciation has nothing to do with the idea of molecules to man evolution. When you understand some basic biology, this really is easy to understand. And you know, when you do understand speciation, you do understand natural selection, when you do understand the processes of genetics, it helps us in explaining something else as well. You see, the Bible tells us that all human beings go back to 2 people, Adam and Eve. Just 2 people. In fact, that's very, very important. You see, the Bible explains to us, really, that there's only one race of human beings. Now, a lot of people today think there are lots of different races, because look around the world and you see all these different people and they seem to be very, very different. We're going to discuss that in another program. But I've had people say to me, now, wait a minute, aren't there different races of people? How do the different races of people come about if you only go back to one man and one woman? I know of Bible colleges that have taught that there was a race of men and a race of women to start with, because they say, how else can you explain, you know, the different people groups that we have around the earth? Well, I hope you can start to think ahead here just a little bit and think in terms of the processes we've talked about in regard to genetics and in regard to natural selection and so on, to get an idea of how we might begin to explain the different people groups if we all go back to one man and one woman. And incidentally, you know why it's important that we understand we go back to one man? Only descendants of that one man, Adam, can be saved. Think about that. Only descendants of Adam can be saved, because Jesus Christ became a descendant of Adam. He's called the last Adam. He died for the descendants of Adam. He became one of us, of our blood. So it's only descendants of Adam can be saved. So therefore it's important to explain that we all go back to Adam and Eve. Now, just to give you a little way of thinking here, to jump ahead, how do we form our different varieties of dogs? Well, you take a population, you have to split them up, to get different combinations of information in separate groups. Now, can you think of